Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Board of Supervisors work session in beautiful King William County. Chris, to cover.
Mr. Moskowsky.
Here.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mr. Garber.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Chairman Hunter.
Here. And I know I jumped over electronic, but it looks like everybody's here, so we need. All right, have you reviewed the meeting agenda? And do I have a motion or? Change? Second. Discussion? Chris?
Mr. Greenwood.
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Moskowsky.
Aye.
Chairman Hunter.
Aye. All right, our first thing is presentations, taxing authority consulting services. John A. Rip, is that correct?
Right. That's okay. I'll answer to about anything.
You like me?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Wright. So I appreciate the board asking us to come and speak, and just happy to answer questions, give you a general report. Before we begin, I just wanted to introduce Seth Pasick, who's an associate with our office. Comes to court quite frequently. I thought it'd be a good idea to introduce him to the board. With that, just jumping straight into this, we provided the board with a current report for collections for through the month of February, which is a part of the board packet. But in addition to that, I think there may have been some confusion about the initial advertising was placed in the newspaper before we began proceedings to file suit. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to also provide this board a very high level from the 30,000 foot level of the overall judicial sale process and how that works. So we've also included that as a part of board packet. But just in general, just before we can begin proceedings for a tax sale for litigation, there are some statutory requisites that we have to meet. One of those is we have to send notices to any of the owners of the property or any lien holders, as those are shown on the records. But we also have to make a publication in the newspaper that within 30 days that will begin proceedings to ask the court to allow us to sell these properties for delinquent taxes. Over my years of doing this, there's always been people calling in saying, "Hey, I'm ready for that auction that you advertised. It's going to happen on this date." So we do try to bold it and underline begin proceedings, but I always thought it was a little confusing how the statute makes us do it, but that may have been the confusion, is that was our initial advertisement. Before we can file suit, we have to publish that in the newspaper. I do understand that the board, when we have an upcoming auction, the board wanted to put that on the county's public website. The more advertisement that we can get for these, the better off we are. So we're happy to send that over to the clerk once the publication goes out. We put that up on our website as well. So we're happy to send that over to the clerk and also have that included on the county's page. The more people we can have come out at these sales, it gives us better bids on the property, which is more likely that the county is going to recover all the tax penalty and interest. And in addition, it's going to protect any lien holders and, of course, any of the owners or heirs. If there are excess proceeds, they'll be able to claim that. So we do try to get as many people out for these auctions as we can. The more news we can generate around it, then that just serves everybody's interest. So just from a general perspective on the real estate collections so far, what we provided to the board through this report shows we were at a 57% collection rate on this. Now, we did receive a new group of files from the treasurer's office in February, so about $300,000. So it pushed down the collection rate because it's a brand new accounts. So the collection rate continued to go up, but I can't remember what the collection rate was the last time we reported to the board, but that may have dropped down a little bit, and that's the reason for that, is we just received some new accounts. And that the new accounts that were referred over to us takes us through 2021 tax years, so we'll be collecting on those. And those, of course, the 2021s, if they only owe 2021s, they don't get qualified for the litigation part of it. We'll still attempt to collect on the accounts before having to order title, and we'll let folks know that if we don't get a payment agreement on these accounts, then we do have to go to litigation. There are costs associated with that, and it'll end up costing more to redeem the property. So we do try to also educate delinquent taxpayers. Since we started working for the county, we collected a little over $1.3 million for the county. The last calendar year, the graph at the bottom indicates the last calendar year for the last trailing 12 months. We've collected approximately $520,000 in tax penalty and interest for the county. So those efforts continue. The next auction, we don't yet have that scheduled on the not on with court. We do have some other properties that are on the court's docket that we are asking for a decree of confirmation or decree of sale on into April and the early part of May. So we're expecting our next auction to be in the beginning of summertime. So we typically have redemptions before we have to go to sale, which is always the best outcome of things. We are a collection law firm and not necessarily realtors, so we prefer to collect on the accounts rather than sell the property. But if we have to, obviously that's the backstop to make sure that we can have folks paying their fair share. That's a whole bunch of words I smushed up into a short few sentences, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have about the work that we do. Just in general.
Mr. Wright, Mr. Chair, if I may. So basically, these numbers are properties that are 3+ years delinquent. That's when pretty close to when y'all start their turnover to you.
Well, in general, so the last group of properties that we've had turned over to us are in 2021 tax year. So it's not as old as that. Now, properties that are valued under $100,000 in assessed value could actually go to auction after just a year delinquency. It has to be the first anniversary following the tax year. The 2021s that fall into that category, we can move those into tax sale earlier than the ones that are valued over $100,000. So we'll be looking at that parameter to see if they qualify and pursue the litigation approach if we're not able to come to some other voluntary resolution.
The council amount, is that where they come in and pay the tax?
No, so the canceled amount, the canceled amount would have been amounts that were turned over to us, or they may have been either written off. In some cases, we do have accounts, and I don't know that I have the number of accounts that may fall into this, but if we do have accounts that are for some reason a hardship case, we generally would recommend those be handled internally. That doesn't happen very often, but that could be part of it. If there were any abatements, those would come off as canceled amounts as well.
This breakdown of the properties, I guess, that you are addressing at this point in time. Let's say pre-litigation Title 4.
Yes.
Is that a property that's close?
No, so pre-litigation title order is, we're just ordering the title on it, we're waiting for the title to come in. Once we've ascertained all of the lien holders and the owners, if the owners are deceased, we do try to look for the heirs, and we'll send them the 30-day notices, just like the owners of the property.
So anything that is title order beside it, that would be pretty close to being brought up for auction.
Yes, we still have to get, if the title's ordered, we haven't yet gotten it back and hasn't gone through the review process. So we're somewhat at the mercy of the title abstractor. We do have the ability to come and do the title work. I can come into the clerk's office and do the title work myself. We always find it's better off to get a title abstractor that's more local. They know the names, the areas, and they'll report back to us. So they review the title, and then my office reviews the title. So we essentially have 3 sets of eyes that are looking at it, and then it comes to my desk for my review of it to make sure that we have all the eyes dotted and T's right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, unless somebody else.
Yes, sir. The notification process, is that accomplished via registered mail?
It is not registered mail. Well, so let me back up. There are 2 types of sales. The litigation process does not require registered mail, but if there are necessary parties to the suit, they would be named and they would be served, through due process. If properties are very low value, like $10,000 under, there's a non-judicial sale process that's that is permitted by statute that requires certified mail. There aren't a whole lot of properties that fall into that category. But if you see on here some of these breakouts with NJS, that stands for non-judicial sales, we don't have to take those to litigation. The idea is, from the General Assembly's perspective, is that smaller value properties, if you have to go through circuit court, most likely the costs are going to eat up any amount you might be able to collect back if you take it to audit. So the General Assembly has allowed on some of these smaller parcels to go through a faster process. We still recognize that there are due process concerns in doing that. So we do try to locate as many heirs as we can, and we send them notices. The owners and the lien holders are required to be notified by certified mail. So in that case, we will be certified.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Anybody else? I'm good.
how do liens on property and bankruptcies affect the sale of property?
If a property goes into bankruptcy, it's full stop until it is either dismissed or discharged. Now, the liens on the property, of course, are not discharged through a bankruptcy. So if, for instance, John Smith declared bankruptcy, I might not be able, after he's discharged, I might not be able to attach to his bank account and seize his funds personally, but the lien still stands on the property, so the property can still be sold for the taxes that are due.
So in a case like that, the county would be the first, say the property, it was a mortgage on it or whatever, bankruptcy. If the county, that individual owed $30,000 in back taxes to the county would be the first.
If it's sold through bankruptcy, the county would be first priority. Now, I mean, there's always some legal finagling that the bankruptcy attorneys might do to try to cram down creditors, but we try to stay on top of that.
In a non-judicial sale, it's obvious that the judge doesn't make the decision. So who does? Does your firm?
So generally at the tax sale, if we're bringing the property up for a tax sale, and the costs are going to be minimal compared to what they might be for a judicial sale. But we do remind folks at the auction that we're here to try to collect on the taxes that are due. We don't want to give the property away because you still have various interests that you have to protect. Not only the county's right to collect on the taxes, but also the landowners. You want to make sure that you're trying to get. It's a distress sale, right? Might not get fair market value, but I do think they own the property, and if we're able to get the highest amount for it, they may have some take play. So traditionally in a non-judicial sale, yes, I would make that call at the auction. But I always tell the bidders, look, I'm not going to hide the ball on you. I'm going to tell you what the costs are. You're going to have to come up to be able to cover those and try to get into the taxes. Generally, if we call a no sale on a non-judicial sale and bring it back up for a second non-judicial sale, we get somewhere in the ballpark of what we got the first time. We'll go ahead and recommend it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I see a lot of these are like $100, $200. Are you going to have to, because they're owned by the same people, are y'all going after them like in a bulk thing? Because individually that would cost more than it's worth.
Yeah, so we try to, well, from an accounts perspective, John Smith has, 10 properties, all of them $100. We do try to bundle those up so it makes more sense to collect on it. And we have them in a single account on our system. So if he does call in, we're talking to him about, all of those accounts. And we also try to bundle up our tax sales. So you'll notice that when we advertise for a tax sale, we have a number of properties that we're selling at one time. The whole idea is you generate more interest with the more properties that you have out there, and the more interest you have, the more likelihood you're going to get a pretty good value for the properties. That's the idea.
Steve?
One more thing, Mr. Chair, while I have you here. Since we have a group of people here, are members of the board of supervisors eligible for these sites?
Yes, Mr. Carter. So generally, if the different departments of the locality, if they're not involved with the collections part of the tax sale process, then yes, they can bid. I've had one locality where the commissioner of revenue bought a piece of property, commissioner didn't have anything to do with the tax sale part of it. In general, the law is if you don't have the ability to influence the overall selection of what accounts go up and potentially circumvent fair and open bidding on it, then yes, disinterested parties can bid on properties. You got to remember these are public auctions, so everybody's on the same footing at the public auction.
Thank you.
Anything else? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Damn.
Mr. Mayor, we appreciate the opportunity to speak
Thank
to
you,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item up is property maintenance for Summer and Andy Lewis and Sherry Grant.
Good evening. And as some of you may know, Andy Lewis, he's been working with us for quite a while. He kind of holds several hats in our department. He's our EMS inspector, property maintenance inspector, zoning inspector, and he also helps out with the building department doing building inspections. So I'm sure you see him out in the county quite a bit. He's on the road checking multiple things daily. Did I leave anything out? Yeah, so you may see him delivering packets from time to time. We wanted to just give you a real quick overview of the property maintenance. Last November, we amended the property maintenance and changed a few things and updated it. So I just kind of wanted to give you a quick overview of what we do with property maintenance and how many that we had last year and what we do with them. And what's coming up in the near future with it. So once we receive a complaint from somebody, we do log it into the computer system. And then it's usually done within 48 hours. It's inspected. If it's found to be a violation, we send a notice out. Normally we give 30 days. We could do less if it's an emergency or it's a bad violation. The way that the property maintenance code reads, the Virginia property maintenance code, they leave it up to the code official. So we do the research, see who owns the property, send them a letter. Once the time is run out, we re-inspect it. If they're working on it and they request additional time, we do try to work with the property owner as long as they're showing that they are working and trying to get it resolved. If they don't, there's a couple of other avenues that we can take. We do take them to court if we have to. That's the last resort because, like I said, we do like to try to work with them if possible. Most of our property maintenance are weeds, trash and debris, inoperative vehicles, and unsafe structures. That is the majority of our property maintenance violations. So last year we had 62 property maintenance complaints. 28 were closed. 34 remained open as of the beginning of the year. We have 3 pending court. With that, what we have started to do in our last year's budget, y'all were kind enough to give us some money to help do demolition on some of the properties. And we have 2 houses that we are starting demolition process on. With that, we've sent the notices out and we've taken pictures. Andy's getting ready to post the property. We have to post the property. We have a demolition checklist. We do have to get with the county attorney to do a title search to make sure that all parties involved in the property are notified. We will send out a final notice of violation to all persons responsible that are shown after the end of the title search. We do have to place an ad in the paper. We have to do a notice of intent that goes to the clerk's office. And it is filed with the deed. That way somebody can't come in between and want to sell that property that's got a lot of property violations. Once that somebody does a deed search and they see that there's a notice of intent, then that stops it. It doesn't stop just because they get rid of it. They don't get rid of the violation. And if that is something that they wanted to go over, they would have to go to court, go before the judge to have it taken care of in between. We take a lot of photos at the beginning, midway, and at the end. Like I said, we put it in the paper. Another thing we have to do, we normally get a search warrant for an inspection search warrant. We go, we make sure, when we get to the property, we make sure that the utilities are disconnected. If not, we have to disconnect it. Make sure that there's nothing unsafe that would stop it from being demolished. Not that we don't really have a lot of problems. Sometimes people are hiding and using some of the old buildings, so you have to make sure that everybody is removed out of there. And we can demolish it safely. We get a couple of quotes from contractors, which we're working on now as well. We do a post demo inspection and we take pictures again. Once it's all done, then we'll do a record release notice of intent to file with the deed, which would release that notice of intent, and we'll close the case.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So is it possible to place a lien on these properties if they don't pay? Is that the process?
And I really do need to get with Natasha, but normally the property owners are billed. They don't always pay this bill. And so then a lien would have to be placed on the property. We also did add in $150 administrative fee that will help cover some of the costs of the work to do this type of work. And not just this, but same thing if we have weeds that somebody doesn't cut and we have to get somebody out there to cut weeds or clean up the trash. We do still have that option. We have to pay up front, of course, to the contractor, but they don't pay with the lien. But anything that we go to that extent to do, that $150 administrative fee will help cover some of the cost.
You can't actually get your fire department to burn these.
I think there's been a lot of problems trying to get it burned, I guess, with insurance and prefer that Stacy talk with you on that. But I guess a chance that it could burn something adjacent to it, so.
Well, I wouldn't think we'd do it if it was close. I have seen that happen.
I don't think they do that too much anymore. I think it's too much of a liability. So Andy and I are here to answer any questions. If you want to add anything.
Just the question. Mr. Chair,
Yes, Steve.
because I'll step in this.
Good.
About it's really loud. Commercial, it says commercial vehicles must be parked in commercial and industrial zones. I was wondering, is that whole area at Commerce Park considered a commercial zone? I thought that was
It's
kind
actually
of,
its own business.
that's what I thought. So all those cars, I mean, nobody's ever complained about any of those. I know they're not licensed and operable.
We don't get complaints on that too much. What we get complaints on sometimes is people in a residential area
That
are bringing tractor trailers home and they're letting them warm up and run for an hour before they take off. And we get a lot of complaints about that, or somebody bringing in dump trucks and parking them, and they have neighbors right adjacent to them.
right.
Those type of vehicles cannot be parked.
So it's mostly for residential areas. And then,
Yeah, we don't receive a lot of complaints for commercial, but we do get the complaints where the commercial vehicles are parked in a residence.
You did have one at Commerce Park, correct? That we dealt with a long time ago.
Well, it was still within the past few months. It's a different.
Yeah, it looks a whole lot.
Yeah,
We do.
oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah, we do have the one business that cleaned up finally.
Okay.
Yeah, he has been working, trying to to get that Commerce Park cleaned up. But that was an import place that had an overabundance of vehicles. And he is still, there's one in the back that's not part of that he's working on to try to get cleaned up.
Another thing, like I said, this doesn't mean to be funny either, but excessive weeds and overgrowth, this is only for residential. We can't do VDOT because we've had complaints on grass being 3 feet tall.
We should serve you that with a
It would be fun.
Now,
They did all on that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
No, Mr. Chair, I've had a couple of cases that just the last few months that have been brought to my attention that I forwarded to Sherry and Andy, and they're doing a great job. Getting right on and been very responsive, and their actions have led to corrective action being taken. So high praise for the work they're doing on this front.
Same with me. The minor counties, serious violations.
and he's aware of one that, last week, so he is, keeping an eye on that one as well as another one that I had received that my stuff had been removed.
You have very much trouble of them clearing it up, and the next thing you know, it's 2 or 3 more back in the same spot.
We have one gentleman, that we need to go over to the courthouse and see why his summons has not been served. He had cleaned it up, I mean, immaculate, and it's back to what it was, probably not as bad, but pretty bad. Our kind of our office rule is we work with them the first time we go to court. If they take care of everything and they work well with us, we'll ask that it be no cross. But if we've taken them to court and then we have to go back to court again, we're not gonna dismiss it or we're not gonna ask that you dismiss or have it no cross. We're gonna go ahead and proceed because they know. And it takes quite a bit of time when you have to go to that extent to take them to court.
Right.
But yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you coming forward already. Next item up is King William Sheriff's Office 2022 annual report. Sheriff, yep.
Try not to delay you guys much tonight, so I'll probably move it early. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board for the opportunity just to go a little bit about our sheriff's office and what we've accomplished this past year. You've got a copy of our annual report in your packet, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It seems to be quite a bit there, and I'm sure you've already looked at it. But I do want to highlight some of our accomplishments this year. The first one that I'm most proud of is probably the longest accomplished with our accreditation, and you guys were a part of that, and I appreciate that. That was a big step for us and for the community here in King William. We've had a couple, recruitment and retention continues to be an issue with us. We're trying to recruit new people into the profession little by little. We've had a couple of graduates this year that we've put out in the field already. And you'll see a couple of pictures there of those two folks, most recent graduates. Our school resource officer program, we grew that this year again, thanks to you guys approving the grant that we were able to receive from Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. That put 2 more SROs out there in the schools, so therefore all 4 of our schools are covered by the SROs. And I wouldn't have thought that they would be as busy as they are, but they are very active with things that just normal stuff that goes on in the school day that the SROs are involved in, even in the lower schools. And so it's been a great help to have them there. It saved us from having to send patrol guys to the schools to assist with some of those things, just to have those folks on hand. One of our great concerns that continues to plague us and plague every community in Commonwealth Virginia is our mental health issues that Virginia deals with. We deal with quite extensively. It's very time consuming, very much of a, I don't know what other way to describe it, but just a big concern that we have. Of course, we've met with different agencies throughout the Commonwealth over the last year trying to address this. The Marcus Alert is a big step in the right direction, I think. Luckily for us, though, we felt, when Virginia changed that law, created that law, they went back and changed it so that if you had a population of 40,000 or less, you didn't have to meet all those requirements, which meant we'd have to have a specialized team to go out every time we received a mental health complaint. We don't have to do that. We have the 988 system is in play now, and we're working on getting to be a part of that. But in doing so, our dispatch becomes a central point to that, and they receive a call. They have a few questions they have to ask to determine whether it's a 988 appropriate call, and they'll send it off to them. They will look at it, talk to the folks on the line, assess the situation, and they will handle it unless they think it's something of urgent need that we need to be involved in. Then they refer it back to us, and we go do what we normally do. We follow out there and take care of it. The biggest issue always comes when we do pick up someone, we have to take them for an evaluation. Normally it's an 8 to 12 hour ordeal or longer. We've had recently up to 72 hours. We were sitting with someone at the ER in the hospital, waiting for bed space that never really became available. Matter of fact, the TO ran out, which is the temporary residence for the time limit ran out before a bed space became available. So all we did was spend 3 days in the ER, and then they were released to be followed up with later. Those are the things that we deal with quite often there. More importantly, talking about our statistics and our calls this year, and I don't know where you are, if you're following me on page 18 there, the number of calls taken in by Emergency Communications Center was a little over 17,000 calls, which was up quite a bit from last year. The number of calls that just the sheriff's office had, or just our guys, was 11,659 calls that the deputies handled this past year. So a lot of calls that come in, not only for us, but for West Point PD, the fire departments, and game commission, and everyone else we dispatch for as well. You see there the number of crashes and summonses and DUI arrests we've had. Court days seem to be on the rise. We're increasing the court days. Last year we went up 6 additional days during the year. This year I think we're already on track to beat that, probably because our juvenile court has added more days to the calendar. And as we go forward into the year, not only we used to do just second and fourth Mondays, now we do second and fourth Mondays for juvenile court, Tuesdays, as well as some Fridays. So our court days are filling up fast, filling up the calendar pretty fast. And just to wrap it up here at the very end there, the number of reportable incidents or number of cases and all, you see that the total number is a little over 13,989 calls that the deputies dealt with that were law enforcement related calls. So a lot of calls of incidents there that some of this officer generated, so they don't show up when the calls come in, traffic stops and things that pop up in, along that avenue. I feel like I rushed through this really fast, but I really didn't want you guys to be listening to me go through this whole thing tonight. I know you've got it before you. So, do you have any questions?
This does not include the walk-ins necessarily.
Not necessarily, no. Unfortunately, we try our best to capture that. I think sometimes we probably do a disservice because, someone walks in, either I talk to them or one of the, captors or someone may catch someone in the lobby, we talk to them, but we don't create that as an incident. We handle it that way. So you're right.
Sheriff, with these statistical increase, do you have the right manpower table? Enough manpower?
I honestly, Mr. Morty, if I had all of our positions filled, I think we'd be adequately staffed to handle everything. Yes. We're stretching our staff pretty thin on some days, and nights, we're just trying to keep people in the patrol vehicles on the roadway. But one incident ties up 2 deputies. A domestic call with an arrest will tie 2 deputies for hours. So then I'm calling people out to take the next calls that come in, if you will.
And you are concerned about the new developments that are in the plans, correct?
I am, and I think I mentioned this very briefly. I thought I was okay with the new staffing, but down the road, as this comes up and the house development becomes complete, I think we've got a 10-year plan down the road for that. As time goes on, yeah, you probably need to increase the numbers of deputies that are out here.
I don't like you saying it that way.
You know,
Sheriff, would it do any good to go ahead and establish those slots now? Even though you can't fill them, at least have them
Yeah.
formalized.
Sure, it probably wouldn't hurt to start looking at filling those or expanding on those as we go forward in the next few years, yes. It's just right now, it's just so difficult to fill, the positions that we have, you know, and we really are, we're trying very hard to recruit and do everything we can to get people on board. Unfortunately, there are some folks who, you know, we can't hire everybody that puts in an application. Some people just don't meet the qualifications. We can't just hire everybody, you know, we have to be selective. And we have to be careful of who we hire. We don't want to be some of these other jurisdictions who didn't do a thorough enough background and end up hiring someone and then, you know, you find yourself on CNN the next week or next month. We don't want to be that. So, you know, unfortunately, we get a few applications in and some of them don't make the testing. Don't make the process, but we're trying very hard to get good qualified people to serve our community here
And maintain.
and maintain what we have. Yes.
Steve?
Okay.
Well, we're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
You still got a ways to go.
Yeah, well, this is probably my last annual report to you guys, but thank you. It really has been an enjoyable career for me. I've loved every minute of it. And I think that your board, and I'm not saying this just to blow smoke, but I do appreciate the support of the Sheriff's Office. But I know you have many other departments you have to worry about, but I do feel it and I appreciate the support.
Mr. Garland.
Gonna miss you too, and thank you for everything you've done for all these years.
I think the sheriff were marrying my wife and I 21 years ago, roughly.
Yes. She's shaking her head, yes.
That's it.
She had to think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next monument. The FY 24 county administrators recommended budget.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, one of the primary duties of county administration is annually to present the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And it's my pleasure and privilege to be able to do that this evening. I have a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll certainly answer any questions that you might have. As we went through the budget process, the most important activity that you have and responsibility that you have throughout the year is to pass a budget. That is the primary responsibility, the spending, the roadmap, everything that goes into our government runs through our budget. And budget must be balanced in accordance with state code. Unlike the federal government, we have to present you a balanced budget, and you have to adopt one by June the 30th every year. The FY 24 budget is introduced after 5 pre-budget work sessions that you assisted with so patiently, and then we had one with the school division just last week. What is recommended has been information that's been gathered by department heads, constitutional officers, outside agency requests, and of course, input from the board of supervisors along the way. And we certainly have appreciated your questions your comments, your feedback. And that's all led to the formulation of the information that I'll be presenting just a few minutes. I always like to go over a few details before we dive into the budget numbers. Our population by Weldon Cooper is estimated now at 18,107. That was as of July 1st of 2022. Of course, we're just coming off of a census count, and if I recall, that's about 81 additional people that was this time last year when we presented the budget. The unemployment rate as of December the 31st of last year was exactly what the unemployment rate was in December of 21, and that was a 2.4%. So we continue to have our people working, and that is a good thing. And unfortunately, as you know, through the recent comprehensive planning process, that anywhere between 70 and 80% of our folks leave the county every day to work. And we hope in the future that we can reverse that trend a little bit. Financial management. I remind the board that you are the overseers of a business. We operate it, you oversee it. And this year, it'll be $69.2 million. That is your responsibility. The budget that I will be presenting and will present the details follows all the financial policies that have been adopted by the Board of Supervisors over the years. There we go. We adopted the FY21 audit a few months ago, and we are still waiting on the completion of the FY22 audit. It is with the auditor, and they need a little bit of information, I believe, but we'll be able to get that information to you hopefully very soon and have the FY22 audit under wraps, and then we feel very confidently by the end of the year we will have the FY23 audit completed. Your unassigned fund balance is something that I know this board has followed closely, and you adopted a policy years ago that 20% of your general fund expenditures will be in the bank at any given time. Well, as we look forward now, the unassigned fund balance is estimated at $9.9 million, or 35% of general fund, estimated from the FY22 audit that's when it comes. And that would be expenditures as of June the 30th, 2022. Then in this budget year, FY23, you authorized expenditures of $1.6 million, and that was appropriated for capital projects. So that would bring our fund balance down to 28% as of June 30th. Still a very healthy undesignated fund balance for our county with both our population and the total budget. If I could share a few accomplishments that you have led and staff has had the pleasure really of working it. The first one was something that's taken 8 years to really get to a finality, and that is the reassessment of a real property. I don't need to remind you that it's taken 2 firms to get that done, but you got it done. And through the cooperation of our citizens, and certainly the hard work of Pearson, Fred Pearson and his company, and then the coordination that the staff has lent to it, we're very near completion of the entire process, which includes the hearings that will begin on March the 21st. But the actual reassessment of that property is completed, and tax cards are on line where people can see where they are, and we hope to get all the photographs up as soon as we can. So the information is pretty much there. Advancing the broadband project. I know it's still a waiting game. We've talked with the broadband folks just as recently as a couple of weeks ago. They came before you. Um, when we break ground and when we get that first, wave of connections, I think you're gonna see it move just as quickly as they said it would. But, there's a lot that goes into this. The partnership that we have is tremendous with the state and with the, utility companies. However, there's a lot of companies out there, or that, all points overseas as well as ours. And sometimes when they experience delays of those that got started before us, then we have to kind of sit back and wait, for all that to come together. But they have, given us a new timetable. They said that they believe they could meet it. And, it's still something that's going to be a game changer for this county when it's implemented. We feel good about this one. We're designing, we have designed an expansion of the solid waste transfer site is underway, down at near King William High School. That's going to be something that, is not only, easier to dispose of the trash, but it will be a safety issue that gets people off of Route 30 while they were waiting, to get into the operation. We began the implementation of the comp plan. There was a lot that went into that, a lot of public input. Planning Commission and yourselves reviewed it very carefully. It's a long-range plan that we've starting to review, and we're taking it very seriously. It's not a shelf document. It'll be something that we hope to implement to its entirety until we're ready to update it again. And you'll be seeing some of the recommendations here in a few minutes that came out of the comp plan. We acquired property, as you know, and we completed the design of a new water tower and now with the public water expansion. And that is something that is on schedule. We've had great engineering support from Bowman, our utility department, and Mr. Hudgens has worked weekly and try to set this path forward, and we're ready, we're there, and this summer we hope to get it bid, and we'll get construction going just as soon as possible after that. The public radio system, something that all public safety officials in the county can be proud of. The sheriff, fire and EMS chief, staffs of both, and working with Motorola, working with our partner, Hanover County, excuse me. That upgrade has been implemented, working very well. And we will continue to tweak that as we go along. But I think that is something that has also been a game changer for the county when it comes to safety. We have completed the recreation expansion plan. Now it'll be up to the board to make decisions on how we implement and what priorities we set. There's a lot that goes into that plan. It's a long range plan as well, but we have some immediate needs because we are growing as not just in parks and recreation, but just in the other private and school sports that could happen if we were to expand our facilities. And that's what we're looking for your guidance here soon as to how we go forward with that. We have 2 smart scale projects that have been approved and they're up for consideration by the Commonwealth Transportation Board. If we were to get one of them, that would be a major victory. If we're delaying 2, then that would almost be unheard of for the Middle Peninsula. But we have trouble seemingly getting into the mainstream of some of the other projects that go on in Richmond. But Sheriff Graham did a great job in putting that, shepherding that, and we feel pretty good that at least one of them will land. And then I would remind everyone that there's numerous other accomplishments that you can read about in the budget message that's contained in the budget document. And I'll speak to that a little bit more about it, but that's through our new model of 6-month planning that seems to be working well with staff and is showing effective results. Mr. Chairman, this budget is put together with the following provisions. We have and follow state legislation and obviously your policies. to implement the split levy funding formula. That is with the town of West Point and also the school division. The emphasis on implementing a BOS directive of equalizing the real estate tax levy. And let me reemphasize that it's been at least a year ago that this board said, when we reassess property and we come around to this time of the year, that we were going to have a tax rate that was going to be within 1% of total valuation of the property that Pearson and his group did. You'll see in a little while what the outcome of that was, but that was your pledge to the public and the citizens of this county. Sure. There's always emphasis on public education as provided in this budget. Emphasis on public safety. Emphasis on utility expansion. We just mentioned a little bit of that. Emphasis on recreation. A little more maybe than we've had in the future, especially on the capital side. And an emphasis on compensation and reorganization for our employees who are working hard every day. We increased their mandatory training. We'll continue to do that as of July 1. Employees are taking on new tasks. We're combining tasks within offices that we haven't before. And we're trying to reward the overachievers and those who are having trouble not making it. Then we've encouraged them to try to find somewhere where their profession would be better off for them. And it's working out very well on both ends. I think everybody's showing the type of work and commitment that you would want out of a government operation. And then, of course, we mentioned the comp plan, the implementation of that. We're moving forward. Just a reminder about the split levy funding model. It was codified by the General Assembly in 2014. It created a special tax district to fund King William schools from voting districts 2 through 5. And then taxes are separated to fund the King William General Fund apart from the King William Public School. And it allows King William County and the town of West Point to each fund separate school systems. There's only one other county in the whole, partnership in the whole state. That's Westmoreland and Colonial Beach. Colonial Beach. This year, a recommendation will be for your consideration and your dialogue to go along with the model of a split levy. We would like to ask the board to consider capturing non-property tax revenue to the degree that the proposal would be beginning in FY24, that any revenues that are received above the projections of non-property tax revenue will be used for economic development and recreation. The school division will continue under this proposal to give what the estimates are. But if there's any overage, if the economy grows and there are overage in any of those 6 categories, then that would return to the county, and the county would continue to use it for economic development and recreation. That'll be something new for you to consider in your budget discussions. The Town of West Point Services Agreement, that was adopted and reached in 2013. It was revised in 2018. And it gives the Town of West Point $182,616 this year. As you know, that is adjusted annually to the Consumer Price Index. And that is the amount that will be proposed. And it's based on funds that are saved by the county for certain services that are offered by the town. And sometimes that gets lost in the dollar amount. But there's a reason behind that. It's because the town offers services that the county does not have to. Thus, the agreement was implemented. Turning to the expenditures of this budget, the general fund, which is the heart and soul of it, is at 32,607,382. And this pie chart, and I hope the folks in the audience can see it. You can see how it's broken down. It's not changed dramatically from last year, but there is a percentage or two that's tweaked a little bit. You see the transfer to schools is always the highest amount that the general fund pays for. Then we move to salaries and benefits, public assistance, and then there's operating expenditures, your school debt and your county debt. That's what makes up the general fund. This year, the general fund is 9% over what it was last year. The increases I'll be showing you in just a couple minutes, but it is 9% over FY23. We'll start with personnel. This budget will fund 136 full-time positions. That's what's included in the request. Only one new position this year, and that is creating an assessor division in the Commissioner of the Revenue's office. It would be under her guidance and operation. Hopefully, it will merge with what the momentum that Pearson has already established, so that we can have some annual assessments. We can keep up closer to the new construction that goes on, and we can build as we go and not have dramatic increases over a 3 or 4 year period or longer. And also, we are asking the board to consider reclassification of 6 manager positions to director. And the reason for this is because to establish the appropriate leadership throughout the county with county staff, I feel more comfortable working in a situation where I'm working with a team of directors that oversee the various departments. And we're not promoting everyone, but we are promoting up to 6 this year. We're also asking the Board of Supervisors to consider a 2% cost of living allowance for every employee, and then up to a 3% merit for those employees who would qualify. And we work hard this year in improving the performance evaluation process to which employees are challenged. And those who would get a 3% will have earned it. And those who don't will have goals and objectives set for them that puts them in a position to be challenged so that they can reach that plateau next year, rather than just signing off and saying, well, this person here, this person there. There's a good, solid process that's going on right now. And I give a lot of credit to that for our human resources director, or our manager, Nita McIntyre. I think we reported this in the work session a week or so ago, but we have no increases in our employee insurance by income this year. That's the second year in a row that we've not had to pay a higher premium. And I think you heard from the library folks and others, that's not worked out well in some places, but our employees are doing well. They're trying to stay as healthy as they can. And we do have a wellness program that we're implementing strongly within the county, encouraging our employees to get out and do something. And I think most of them are buying into that.
Now, this particular one, we know it's not going to increase. For some of those departments you're talking about, other jurisdictions, they really hadn't got the report yet. If you remember, that's what they said, of what I remember.
You talked about the library and that. That could be. But we're pretty certain from the information that we've been told that we have no increase. Education, again, the largest expenditure in this budget. The total appropriation is $13,240,626. And that'll be less debt service paid by King William County on behalf of the King William Public Schools. And that amount is 1.789574. So your total direct funding is $11,451,052. That comes out to an increase of 538,390,000. Excuse me, 390 from FY 23's total appropriation. And going back to that for a minute, and I would also add that through some good work by the treasurer and the support of our county finance department, we've been able to finally find a model for investments of county money. And we look very solid to be able to make much higher of a percentage than we may have ever had in recent years. And the school's percentage is geared to be close to $100,000. So if you add 538,390 to say 100,000, you'll be close to almost $650,000 in new money that would be coming into the school.
And the last year, just as a reminder, we paid $880,000 increase.
That's correct. That's correct. 888, I think, if I remember, all 3 8.
So they're asking for more, right?
They are, they're, as you know, your work session, they called for a little bit over $1 million. And we've been trying to wrestle with with what that means with the state and what they're still deliberating. The budget hasn't been adopted at the state level yet, but their ask was 5% for their employees as well. And then we talked about the debt service. Transportation is also another matter that they have been challenged with higher fuel and things like that. I can just stand here and tell you that not giving everybody everything is not an easy thing for a county administrator or a board of supervisors to determine. But some years you just have to choose your priorities, and we've tried to do what we could do and still meet the goals of the other things that we're trying to accomplish. Investment in public safety remains. This board's committed to that, and the budget calls for that. We're proposing fire and EMS at 1829282. That's an 8% increase over last year. The sheriff's office is proposed at 20019. That's a 5% increase over last year. And then this board certainly wanted to equalize certain fire and EMS salaries to make them comparable to the sheriff's office. And that is in the amount of $50,027.88. And funding of the radio system, there's a cost. It's a great thing to do, but there's certainly a cost. We are still trying to work through what the future lease and maintenance fees are going to be with Hanover. These are estimates right now. We hope to lower this by the time the budget year ends. But right now we start out with $389,967 that we're committed to lease agreements with both Hanover and Motorola. Our volunteer companies, they gratefully came before you and offered their request, and we are funding those at a total of $706,024, and that's a total of 2% over all of last year. That includes West Point, Mango Hick, and Walkerton. Mango Hick's proposal is $183,578 for operations, capital, and radio support. Walkerton is $66,012 for operations and radio support. And then you have West Point $456,434 for operations, capital, and radio support.
But not an increase, correct?
Not an increase from their ask the other night, but that, yes, that's an overall increase of 2% across the board. Everybody total would be 2% higher.
Because of what? Because they came in and asked for.
I think it's
level funding is.
I think it's in operations.
Well, I think we're saying that the total spend on volunteers is 2% higher than the year
Yes.
before. West Point asked for level funding, Mango Hick asked for a small increase in Walker.
That's exactly. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yes, thank you. The remaining constitutional officers, the Commonwealth's attorney, a 2% increase. The Commissioner of Revenue is a 23% increase. And that, keep in mind, one position being added to that budget can drive that percentage up pretty high. And the treasurer, 11% increase. Thank you. And the clerk of the circuit court, 382,692, a 14% increase. And they all certainly are the benefactors of funding from the comp board, which helps obviously set the spending level that they receive. Contributions to outside agencies. We have 5,181,243 total, and includes some of the larger ones. Social services has a 30% increase, 324,014. CSA is a 3% increase at 471,054. The Pamunkey Regional Library, 602,907, which is almost a 5% increase. VIPSA, 1.277010, and that's a 19% increase. And then the regional jail, 1252244, which is a 16% increase. Those are some of the larger ones that make up that 5 million. We have a very aggressive capital program to bring before you. It's $12,315,178. It's funded from the proposal will be funded by numerous sources. None of them would be the general fund, but it will be coming out of proffers. It will be coming, there will be a borrowing request that will be asked of the board. We feel like this is in line with the recommendations that are coming out of the various studies that we've done, not including just the comp plan, but other things, direct plan and utilities. A sports complex, a new library, and upgrades to the recreation park, that would be $10.5 million. And those are rough numbers. Until you get real ones, that's our best estimate.
It's a stretch, I think.
Yeah, it could be. We need to upgrade the boardroom. This is the center of your government. We want to create a better atmosphere where we're going to have better audio, better video, better monitors, and we certainly might need to make some carpet and other furnishing upgrades. Facilities, our facilities department. We have an office building in the back. We need to determine what we're going to do with that in the future. So we need to upgrade that. The Emergency Operations Center has now been established at being at Station 1. We're moving the administrative offices out there, and now we're going to create what is necessary to offer a first-class EOC. The animal shelter. You visited the sick room before, and there were multiple reasons why that didn't make it a few years ago. That issue continues to be one of a priority for Lori and our staff down there. We need to build a room that will separate animals from when they're sick and when they're well. We need to put some equipment in there, and we also need a new fire alarm and detection equipment. King William Shares proposed the 121,541 to do these. As you know, we're in partnership with King and Queen on this, and we continue our discussions to see how they are coming along. And I hope to have that on the agenda next week as to how that's working out with King and Queen, so you can make some decisions based on what their decisions are. We also have $120,000 recommended for vehicle replacement for the sheriff. HVAC replacements next year will be $100,000. Roofing replacements at 252,096. We also have some ARPA funds. That, as you know, in 2021, you received $3,330,798. And through December the 21st or 31st of 2024 to spend that money. As of February the 28th of this year, $2,521,027 remains unspent. However, when broadband gets rolling, we're going to have to write them a check. And $2 million of that has been dedicated by this board to pay for that expansion. Debt service, always a factor in how you conduct your business. The total outstanding debt as of right now is $46,363,604, and that will be as of June 30th of 2023. As you know, you have a spring borrowing coming up. You'll be taking that up at the end of the month for the year for the water tower. So when you break down the debt, the school division has $24,412,245, or 53% of the debt. And their annual payments are $1,789,573. County government generally is 22% of the debt, $10,251,359. And our payments are $1,805,670. And then we are adding the remainder of 25% in utilities now. Utilities did not have any debt before. They're going to have some now. And the anticipated annual payment on the water tower will be $550,000.
Covered by the utilities.
That's correct.
Still.
Yes. Contracts and professional services, you have to have them. Expertise that staff cannot provide, $539,648. There's a number of different, what's 2% of the operating budget, and all of the various services that we're recommending are included in the budget message. And legal fees is one that's in there at $150,000. The utility fund, which includes water and sewer. The operating budget is 1.330136, and that's a 13% increase due to the debt service annual payment. We now have approximately 750 water customers. 705 of those are residential customers and 48 are non-residential customers. That system continues to grow, as you know. And we are served by sewer by the Hampton Road Sanitation District. Revenues. If you look and see what generates the funds that we use to operate our government, 44% of those funds come from real property tax. Personal property is 4%. Vehicle tax is 15%. The transfer from the CIP is 0.4%. Federal revenue is 0.1%. State revenue is 11%. Other local revenue is 5%. Other local taxes is 13%. Machinery and tools is 7%. That comes out to 32,607,382, which is what our spending was for the general fund. This is the revenue forecast that will meet that obligation.
And is that figuring the vehicle tax at 365?
Yes, it is. Here's the tax levy summary that we're proposing to the board. We recommend a real property rate of 58 cents, down from 83.5 from last year. This is the equalized rate. This is the one that the board directed county staff to get to. The countywide rate would be 30 cents, and the school district rate for King William would be 28 cents. If you look at the chart to the left, you can see the assessed value. And you can also see on the right what one penny was in 2022 at 172,000 plus. And the school district was 138. 1 penny in the county forecasted for FY 23, 258 cents, or what is it, 258,599.47, and the school district would be 209,479.59. That'd be for 1 penny. And then the chart on the right, we thought you would want to know how we would be doing compared to some of our neighbors, some of the localities. This is not population based. It's just where we do business, where many people do business in the region. You can see that a tax rate of 58 cents would bring King William down to near the bottom of that chart.
Now, is that figuring what the other counties were last year, correct?
This, good point.
It's
Good
not-
point, Mr. Chairman. These are current rates, and if anybody raises or reduces their taxes this year, then that chart will be changed. Property tax revenue, vehicle tax, we're requesting that you, or actually return to 365 where it was last year, or the year before, and you did change it to 265 in August. That's because of an increase in vehicle values. We have seen a decrease as much as at least 25% right now, and the Commissioner of Revenue is going to give us a report on that next week as to where she thinks things are.
She's already seen a decrease.
Well,
In the
she's
event.
counties are reporting that throughout the state, and I believe she has seen some of that. But I don't
You
speak
said
for her.
that.
Yeah.
But just as with last year, if we see changes, we can do what we did last year.
You can do that. I believe the budget's a little bit tighter this year. It'll create some harder decisions for you to get there if you choose
That's
to
why I
do
was
it.
asking earlier,
Yeah.
the revenue were based on that 360.
Yeah, they'll. Personal property generally, is a 365, as well, that remained, there. And the machinery and tools remains the same as it was, last year. So concluding, gentlemen, we're recommending that you lower the tax rate to 58 cents. This budget funds the public school division based on the split levy legislation and gives them an increase of what they had last year. It captures the nonprofit tax revenues for economic development and recreation, which is something that would be a change from what it's been in the past. It funds your annual debt payments. The budget funds public safety. It funds your volunteer fire programs. It funds one new general fund position. And it funds pay increases for county employees. And again, no increases in health insurance premium. And it provides continued funding for building maintenance. It funds 29 outside organizations, funds your capital program, and it keeps the unassigned balance above the BOS policy of 20% of general fund expenditures, 28% to be exact. Your budget schedule coming up next Monday, 7 o'clock. We'll be hearing, at least from the Commissioner of Revenue, we'll be talking about animal shelter. We're still trying to figure out if there's any pressing things that we need to bring before you. If after you've had a chance to review this proposal, if there are things that you would like to add to the agenda, please let us know so we can do the homework on it and get it out to you in time, so you'll be prepared to discuss it. Then we have the public hearing on the budget. First of all, the budget document is at 7 o'clock on March 27th. And the tax rate is 7 o'clock on April the 24th. And the reason why they're not together this year is because of the reassessment, we had to advertised 30 days in advance of, before having a public hearing on the tax rate. So that, will now not, come before you until, April the 24th will be that public hearing. And then that would set up a first opportunity for you to consider, voting on the budget as a whole on May the 8th. That's the schedule right now. And certainly there's room for any, special meetings that you might want to have if there's other discussions you want to engage in. I want to thank all staff, but there's been a lot of hours spent by the director of finance, the deputy county administrator, the human resources manager, and the county clerk, in just coordinating what is trying to fit a balance as to where you want your government to be and how we pay for it. And I'm proud of everyone. The department heads were very good at submitting reasonable requests, as well as the constitutional officers. And we feel like it's a budget that will carry you one step further, where I think the county, you want to see the county go, but it will certainly be a relief to find the tax rate to be much different than it has been in a long time anyway.
Have you got more detail in what you're gonna present us?
That's that's okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask Mr. Hodges to go ahead and pass out the budget document. And I'll remind everyone that the budget message is included in the budget document. And that will be online as of later tonight and certainly by tomorrow. And you can review more details of what's included in the entire budget by first reading the budget message. And I would encourage everybody to do that, because I think it answers a lot of questions without going into a lot of tables and numbers and charts and things like that. So anyway, Mr. Chairman, that is your budget. It's now yours. Staff is proud to present it, and we're open for any questions you might have, Steve.
I have one that caught my eye earlier, the 1.8 million for the fire department, does that include the 478,000 that we have not budgeted?
Yes.
And I know it's been in a grant scenario, but it does include it.
It does, yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I really appreciate the graphic that you showed for the comparison to the other counties with that 58% rate. If any of y'all care to go statewide online and look at it, it is a few counties that are cheaper, less, but that's an incredible move, and we really compare well to everybody.
But with that, what I said earlier, a lot of them haven't done theirs yet. What rate they
Some
gonna
of them may be higher, some of them may be lower.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but you can look at some of those other counties that are much higher than us, much higher than this 58% rate, even if they reduce it to 3, 4 cents. It's still going to be cheaper than that. It is a group of counties that are, in the 40s, I'd say.
I didn't see a whole lot on there, but.
No, I mean, some of these counties in the western part of the state, not heavily, that this population base is not as great as ours. I'm very happy with it.
You got Steve?
Yeah, the budget that you actually gave us, the budget doesn't follow the PowerPoint presentation. It's not exactly the same, right? So I don't see some of the pages in here that were on the presentation. Like you said, like Garber said, that graph that showed the other counties
And in your budget message.
all the mess.
Yeah, it's in the budget. Yeah,
And I guess the due dates of the new meetings are in there too.
they should be in the budget message. Yeah.
Are they already in the calendar too?
Yes, you've already set those dates. The only thing that's new would be probably the public hearing on the tax levies. And we've already placed that advertisement at 58 cents.
That April 20th.
Yeah, yes, but that, we had to get that to them, so they can begin to prepare it. So the advertised rate will be at 58 cents. You know, you can't go higher, you can always go low.
I know it seems like a hot time, you know, it seems like we do budget all year round.
We do, no question. Yes.
Anybody got anything else?
Got something to add at the moment. There's a lot, you know, there's a lot to go over and some decisions we've got to make here on how we want to handle some certain things. I'd of course like to talk more about, you know, allocation of those other taxes that we collect. I've got some concerns about making changes there, but maybe you can convince me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll do our best. But we shall see.
All right.
I think I think I started Stephen last week. Ed, started off.
Real request, I would like to commend those, I've done a lot of accidents on the highways. That's a couple of weeks, thanks to all the citizens who have been cleaning up. The board is even better.
It's another. Bruce?
Mr. Ashcraft, you sent out to us today I guess it was a flyer for the household, chemical collection. If that's not on the county website, it's already on there.
We got it today.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah, get it out there. That's a great thing to have.
I think it's on the good, so.
And also, I want to thank all staff, everybody, all the department heads that contributed to the budget. It seemed like it was a whole lot smoother this year. And we do still need to talk about some things as Travis said. Anyway, thank everybody for coming.
Right. Light on requests, obviously keep pressing on the internet front. Like to get as much information as we can on that as we continue to move forward. I'm looking forward to diving into the document. I've got a few questions that I'll be asking in the coming days about some things that I see that I think we can, you know, try to do just a little bit more. Obviously, we're leaving schools a little bit shorter where they say they want to be, which is a situation that I try to never put them in if we can help it. But we've got a lot of need this year, and we're trying to do a lot with what we have. Yeah, I'll keep looking, and anything that jumps out at me, I'll bring it out, and we'll talk about it.
Steve?
No, nothing new, like I said, already brought up the internet, so that's good enough. We bring it up every week, so, but.
We're here every week, so.
And I don't have a whole lot, we'll do the best we can, but yet there's a point where we can only stress it so much of it. There's a lot of things, you gotta move the whole county forward. Expanding, becoming much larger.
Mr. Chairman, if there are specific budget items that you would want on next week's agenda, I reiterate, I would like to know those.
You're
As
just
soon as we
sending it
can.
to him.
So that we can begin again to do
That's
the
good.
due
idea.
diligence to be able to present it to you, get you whatever information you need. So I ask any, you know, it is a budget work session next week. So if there's things in here that you want to generally talk about, I think that's a good opportunity for you to do it. So if it's school funding, split levy funding, if it's capital, I mean, I'm just throwing some things out here. Just let us know so we can be ready.
Well, I mean, obviously, just from right off the bat, so we have it here tonight. You know, anytime we start talking about allocating money that's collected in districts 2 through 5 exclusively to, you know, to anything non-school fund related, my concern is that we're getting outside of the spirit of split levy, and that we're going to be, you know, funding general fund activities that the town should be chipping in. And so, I guess if we can demonstrate that we won't be doing, you know, that we'll be, you know, basically holding taxpayers in 2 through 5, you know, harmless in that effort. then I could support it, but I need to be convinced that that's what we're doing, that we're not supplementing, again, activities of the township.
Not to belabor this. But I'm sure part of that 2 million that we're sending for broadband came from the town of West Point.
Right, but you know as well as I do, my whole thing is, we've got the legislation and the legislation is written
I
the way it is.
understand,
for a
but
reason.
it's still town money also.
Actually, the 2 million.
So after that.
In that, do I have a motion?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move to convene a closed meeting in accordance with section 2.2-3711A3 of the Code of Virginia regarding real property used for a public purpose, specifically pertaining to the possible acquisition of real property for a public purpose and the disposition of real property held for a public purpose, because discussion in an open meeting may adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the board. And in accordance with section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, to consult with legal counsel, consultants, and or staff on a matter of actual litigation in which the county is involved, and in accordance with section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the matter of contracts with the schools requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel.
Any further discussion? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Garber,
Uh,
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Hodges.
Aye. Hopefully we'll be back shortly. All right, I call this meeting back to order.
Mr. Chair, I move that we resume the meeting in open session.
Second.
Ms. Branch?
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Chairman Hodges.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I move SR1.
Second.
Ms. Branch?
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Garber.
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Chairman Hodges.
Aye. And Mr. Miskowski?
Oh, Mr. Greenwood's got it.
The motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay.
I move that the board authorize and direct the county administrator to execute the agreement presented to the board, which secures ordinance compliance and allows for disposition of case CL 22-347. And further, that the board authorize and direct the county attorney to prepare, file such pleadings as are necessary to effectuate the agreement.
Second.
All right, any further? Ms. Branch?
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Chairman Hodges.
Aye. Do I have?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move adjourned.
All right. Ms. Branch?
Mr. Garber,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Miskowski.
Aye.
Mr. Greenwood,
Aye.
Chairman Hodges.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned, and we will see you next month.